Part 4. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 31. Chapter 31 Golden Jade Pavilion Auction. In the morning, a faint white mist shrouded the top of Spirit Peak City. Some sects and white-tailed pheasants used to deliver messages from time to time passed through the sky above Spirit Peak City, making the entire Spirit Peak City a little bit awkward. A fairyland feeling. In the small stone house of Wei Suo's in the west of the city, with the shape of a shapeshift great art of Wei Suo's hands, 10 thumb thicknesses, a snake-like lightning flashed in front of him, creaking and entangled, forming a 2-footed sharp-pointed shuttle. Wei Suo's right hand waved, this lightning bolted on the ground near the corner, a surging sound burst, with a dazzling electric spark popping up, hard stone appeared on the ground, a pit that is 1 foot square. He, Wei Suo glanced at him, his face immediately showed a very satisfied look, then Wei Suo smashed 2 bulging black leather bags into his arms and walked out the door toward the Golden Jade Pavilion in the south of the city. Going over. Today is the day of the auction. If the middle-grade coal jade sells well, Wei Suo will have a good credit. In the past 3 days, Wei Suo Cultivation Golden Snake Thunder Secret Art has finally mastered the Golden Snake Reser of the second layer of Golden Snake Thunder Secret Art. Because the jade card that was free to enter the auction on the same day was kept by Nangong Yuking, today Wei Suo met with Nangong Yuking outside the auction venue as agreed. The official venue of the auction is in the Golden Jade Pavilion next to the tower, a Golden Jade Pavilion around the more than 10 great treasure merchants to the public dedicated to the special building for the auction. The outer walls are all made of white boulders, carved a variety of exquisite clouds, 4 of cornices slanting upward. It seems that the entire building is like flying to the general. When Wei Suo arrived at Linguafang, it was nearly half an hour before the official start of the auction. However, the wide streets outside Lingfangfang and the surrounding shops have gathered many people. Wei Suo used aura determining technique to look at the past, the heavenly circuit realm first layer and above. With the aura determining technique, it seems that the Kiflam rolling figure of the water is at least 7 or 8. In fact, many cultivators gathered outside Lingfangfang did not want to go to the auction to buy things. Instead, they used this kind of human traffic great treasure as a free intercourse market and sold them outside Lingfangfang. Your black wind painter is too bad, right? Wei Suo waited for a while near the door of the Golden Jade Pavilion, and at least 5 or 6 guys came up to sell things, and to make him a little bit sorrowful, one of the guys who sold him was a plain white with black stripes. Mink. How come this beauty hasn't come yet? Shouldn't you put my pigeons? Waiting for a while, Wei Suo couldn't help but scream in his heart. Wei Suo. At this time, Wei Suo heard a sweet surging sound and shouted at himself. Nangong Yuking? Wei Suo looked back and saw Nangong Yuking looking at himself from the secret place not far behind him. Wei Suo is just a glance, and it's almost a direct look. Today, Nangong Yuking did not wear her red tight-fitting soft armor, wearing a white shapeshift great art robe. Elegant and pure white shapeshift great art robe, Nangong Snow the clear chest towering as far secret place of the wild snow white butt mountain, shapeshift great art robe is he evenly profound continent female cultivator is the most popular style, chest double flap open a little bit lower, showing a white snow white butt by deep ditch, a green great treasure stone necklace of a mellow pendant right in this deep ditch middle, more appear skin crystal white. The robes are waisted, and an unusually perfect arc, robes and ground, are swaying from the waist, as if they were a long fish tail. If Nangong Yuking, who was wearing a red tight-fitting soft armor, was a glamorous and amazing warrior, now Nangong Yuking is like a mermaid coming out of the picture. Not only Wei Suo, but many of the surrounding cultivators have their eyes straight. Many cultivators can't wait to be the green great treasure stone necklace that Nangong Yuking has on his chest. Wei Suo's some dazed eyes let south. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 32. In the early morning, a faint white mist enveloped the Lingyu city. Some martial arts cranes and long-tailed scorpion birds used to pass messages from time to time, passing the sky above the Lingyu city, making the whole Lingyu city a little lingering, wonderland-like feeling. In the small stone house of Weizhuo in the west of the city, with the formation of a method of Weizhuo's hands, 10-thumb thickness, snake-like lightning flashed in front of him, crackling, entwined, and formed a 2-foot-long shuttle. With a wave of Weisuo's right hand, this lightning bolt hit the ground near the corner of the wall with a snapping sound. With the burst of a dazzling electric spark, a stone appeared on the hard stone ground. A pit in a square foot. Hey, Weisuo glanced, and immediately a very satisfied look appeared on his face. Then Weisuo put 2 bulging black leather bags into his arms and walked out towards the Jinyu Pavilion in the south of the city. In the past. Today is the day of the auction. If the middle-grade cold jade is sold well, Weisuo will have a good entry. During these 3 days, Weisuo practiced the golden snake leiju, and finally mastered the second layer of the golden snake leishuo skillfully. Because the jade card that can enter the auction for free on that day was kept by Nangong Yuking, today Weisuo went to the outside of the auction venue to meet Nangong Yuking according to the agreement. The official venue for the auction is Lingxiofang, next to Jinyu Pavilion, a building dedicated to auctions shared by dozens of large businesses around Jinyu Pavilion. The outer walls are all piled with white boulders and carved various exquisite cloud patterns, 4 cornices slanting upward. It seems that the whole building seems to be flying up. When Weisuo arrived at Lingxiofang, it was nearly half an hour from the official start of the auction, but the wide streets outside Lingxiofang and the surrounding shops were already densely packed with many people. Weisuo passed a glance at the site, and at least 7 or 8 of the powerful people who had a Jotian realm weighing more than 1, and looked like a plume of water with the hope. In fact, many monks gathered outside Lingxiofang did not want to enter the auction to buy things, but used this place with a large flow of people as a free trade market and sold it outside Lingxiofang. I'm relying on it. Your painter of the Black Wind Mink is too bad. Weisuo waited for a while near the door of Jinyu Pavilion, and at least 5 or 6 guys came up to sell things, and what made him a little cry was that one of the guys selling to him was actually an ordinary sable with black stripes. Why hasn't this beauty been here yet? Wouldn't I put my pigeons? After waiting for a while, Weisuo could not help whispering in his heart. Why saw, at this time, Weizhuo heard a sweet voice shouting at the back. Nangong Yuking? I rely on it. Weisuo turned around and saw Nangong Yuking looking at herself smilingly not far behind him. And Weisuo just looked at it, almost stunned. Today's Nangong Yuking did not wear her red tight-fitting soft armor, wearing a white robe. Under the elegant and simple white robe, Nangong Sweking's chest towered like a wild snow mountain in the distance. The robe is the most popular style among the female prostitutes of Tianqian continent. The chest is slightly lowered, showing a touch of snow. Deep groove, a round pendant of a green gemstone necklace just hangs in the middle of this deep groove, and the skin looks more crystal and white. The robe is waisted, and a very perfect arc is collected from the waist down. The robe and the ground swayed like a long fish tail. If Nangong Yuking, who was wearing red tight-fitting soft armor before, is a beautiful and amazing warrior, now Nangong Yuking is like a mermaid coming out of the picture. Not only Weisuo, but also the eyes of many famous monks around them are a little straight. Many monks can't wait to become the green gemstone necklace that Nangong Yuking wears on her chest. Weisuo's dazed eyes made Nangong Yuking's face appear a little blush, but a slight surprised look also appeared in her eyes. Because Weisuo had shaved all that charred hair, it seems that he should have shaved his head straight, and now his hair only grows a short inch. But without that messy straw-like hair, now Weisuo does look a little brow-looking and pretty handsome. Why, don't you know, looking at the stunned Weisuo, Nangong Yuking stretched out her hands and gathered her hair. This action made her even more woman-like, and attracted a lot of hot eyes. This beautiful woman doesn't know who it is. Many young monks around the world who are not low-spirited are eager to move, and some are even ready to step forward and talk. Isn't it? But they were a little dumbfounded when they saw that this hot girl who had a long history seemed to come together with a low-level casual repairer who didn't seem to mix up at all, like it was like familiarity. This changes a little, and I can't see it for a while. Wei Suo smiled embarrassedly. The jealous eyes around him made his heart very useful. After all, some monks, even if they were higher, didn't have such a thing around them. A beauty. Your changes are also great, and your hair is not so personal anymore. Nangang Yuking's fingers pulled the corner of her clothes and smiled. Yeah, did you see Yes Yao Zheng and Ye Wei? No, Wei Zhuo shook his head. They said last time that they might not come. If they haven't come by this time, they shouldn't be over this time. Since this is the case, should we go first? There is at least a quiet place to speak. Nangang Yuking looked at Wei Suo and smiled. I have something to say to you alone. Say it to me alone. Wei Suo looked at Nangang Yuking and felt that Nangang Yuking's smile was a bit ambiguous, and he immediately started a full association in his heart. Isn't this beauty falling in love with me at first sight? Right. Let's go. Seeing Wei Suo did not object, Nangang Yuking smiled at Wei Suo slightly. The morning sunlight reflected on her coiled hair, coated with a layer of golden light, a girl-specific fragrance, so that Wei Suo has a feeling of numbness. Nangang Yuking, but at this time, a loud voice came. As soon as Wei Suo turned his head in the direction of the voice, he saw a handsome young man walking towards Nangang Yuking and himself with a smile on his face. The handsome young man looked similar to Wei Suo's age. He wore a gold ring around his head and wore a linen robe. The whole linen-colored robe is decorated with gold silk dotted with several light blue crystals. This elegant and chic robe makes the handsome man with sword and eyebrows look extraordinary. Moreover, judging from the faint wind mana fluctuations on the pattern of the light blue spar and the robe rune on the robe of this guy, the crystals dotted on this robe are not just for good looks, but should be some special function. 5-level monk of supernatural powers. Wei Suo looked at him with calmness and saw that there were 5 Shenhai brilliances faintly appearing on this handsome man, and the 5 Shenhai brilliances were all very turbulent. It is not comparable to Wei Suo, a low-level Zi Xian Zhensuo Nang. Obviously this guy is at least a bit of a comer. But what made Wei Suo feel very unpleasant at first was that this polite-looking guy walked towards himself and Nangang Yuking, but he almost didn't look at himself, his eyes stayed on Nangang Yuking's body. Asterisk. Some book friends in the previous group said that if I had a classmate who won the top prize, I would add 10,000 on the basis of the normal update. One day I agreed. And I ended up bird, because I originally vowed to update this book faster than Luofu. The one-day update has been very powerful, and it made me desperate, but several students have been above the champion, and now it is sweet and group. I calculated it, saying that I have owed 100,000 words. No way, I can only owe it slowly. This chapter is the first part of the debt to the vanishing eyes of the champion. Wait until I counted 1 and paid off, and then I will return to the next one. And I forgot to say the chapter at night. In addition to bookmates who cannot express, I am going to send to EMS tomorrow, the last YY event and some special. All the gifts of the old book friends I have found have been sent out. I was busy for a day today, because of the New Year's relationship. I found several courier companies, and finally I found the most reliable and most express delivery service in our city. Sweeta made many phone calls before finally urging the courier. All of them were written and sent out. The things are not worth much, they are some Luofu mouse pads and t-shirts, and some greeting cards may not be as good as the courier fee expensive, but the 20 or so copies are all my heart. I signed the autographs, and I have written something carefully for the greeting card, which is somewhat commemorative. Whoa, but in case I am particularly red, say it may still be worth a few meters. Some of the next gifts are still being counted by the help of friends such as Sweet and Uncle Ka, Yu, Jazz Poison, K-Wen, and Tang Tang. Perhaps the nearest courier company has almost missed the delivery. Yes, so I can send it as much as possible. I will send it as soon as possible after the new year. Thank you for your support. I also hope that some fans who silently support me will also show more heads. In fact, although it is some activities, but in fact, there are some people who often support me. I will remember, I will try to contact, when possible, I will try to send a blessing of mine, and, even if it continues to break out tomorrow, I will get more red tickets and collections. Oh. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 33. Chapter 33 Great Talisman Master Way, Red Ticket. With the strength of the Golden Jade Pavilion, without the protection of Heaven's first sect, even if the role of the Thought Division realm is robbed, are you supposed to be killed? At the entrance of Ling Fang Fang, 4 people stood wearing a Chinese costume cultivator with the Golden Jade Pavilion logo. Wei Suo used aura determining technique to see that only 4 people were surrounded by a stream of chi flame. They couldn't see clearly. The 4 were just cultivators who greeted the guests entering the auction at the door. It turned out to be the character of Heavenly Circuit Realm. It seems that some of the top grades in Spirit Peak City do have the power to equigate to a great treasure sect, but the means by which both parties acquire spiritual stones are different. Wei Suo saw that Li Honglin also took out a red jade talisman and let Wei Suo great treasure that the red jade talisman seemed to have a 3 on it, which means that the jade talisman can make up to. He took 2 people and joined Li Honglin with 3 people. Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking, the red jade talisman, can take 4 people to enter. Compared to Li Honglin Sr., Li Honglin listens to Wei Suo. When 2 people sit in 4 positions, the eyes are twitching. It's hard to tell Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking to join him in his VIP seat. One of the 4 Heavenly Circuit Realm cultivators in the doorway saw Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking's admission jade talisman, and then politely invited Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking to enter, and just walked in. Great treasure door, immediately 2 Chinese teenagers in front of the road. In the corridors of Lingwufang, every few steps are inlaid with a luminescent pearl. These luminescent pearls are much larger than the giant treasures that Wei Suo bought, and the entire corridor is illuminated. The columns on both sides of the corridor are inlaid with essence metal with a distinctive character, which is composed of decorative patterns such as many ornaments and rare birds. With the light yellow warm jade and the floor and the decorative enamel band, people who walk into this Lingfang will immediately feel a kind of luxury and warmth. There are also statues of beautiful women holding vases along the corridors and ramps. These statues have made Wei Suo look at them for a long time. Because one of these beautiful statues looks like Shui Ling, and some of them are not under Shui Ling, it is clear that these statues are in heavenly profound continent cultivation world. The faces of several of the most famous beautiful women are carved. Wei Suo couldn't help but think that Nangong Yuking walked with himself and he had such a face. If Shui Ling is such a famous and beautiful cultivator, and it is a face-lifting one. What? The interior main naked body building is divided into upper and lower floors. The following is the 6 coiling dragon great treasure pillar propped up great treasure. 6 coiling great dragon columns is the use of a purple red giant wood carved, shiny, surrounded by a red velvet drapery, great treasure in the middle of the north with a small level 9 platform. There is a sun from the temple top of the glass, the middle refracted, just right on the platform. Obviously this platform is dedicated to the exhibition of auction items. There are at least 300 seats in the hall of the Greta treasure, and every 3 or 4 seats are cut off with a kind of rattan wood, making them look like a small box. The second floor is the entire surrounding grandstand, which has been directly made up of a number of VIP rooms. From these VIP rooms, you can see the whole picture of the whole temple. Haha, Golden Jade Pavilion is really good at doing things, this kind of treatment. There are good things in the future. It is difficult to sell to the Golden Jade Pavilion. 2 Chinese teenagers really took Wei Suo and Nangong Yuking to a VIP box on the east side of the second floor. Although it is already clear to the mind that Nangong Yuking must have been in this kind of auction more than once, she said that it is not wrong, but seeing the VIP box in front of her, Wei Suo's heart is still unspeakable. The entire VIP box is very spacious, with a red fluffy blanket made of fur that doesn't know what monster beast. In addition to the 4 rosewood great treasure chairs leaning against the stands, there are coffee tables and chairs. Don't say 2 people. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 34. Chapter 34 United Void Pellet, 3rd More Red Ticket. There are at least 450 VIP boxes on the 2nd floor of Linguafang. However, it may be a small auction. It seems that there are only more than 20 VIP boxes, but these people are mostly low-key and sit down. Less late, unlike Li Honglin, deliberately want Wei Suo to see his face. Not great treasure for a while, when there were nearly 200 cultivators in the great treasure, the Golden Jade Pavilion shopkeeper Tian wearing a purple robe slowly embarked on the platform of great treasure, and hit everyone with great treasure surging sound. After the greeting, there was no excessive link and the entire auction was officially started. This is the high-grade essence metal of the artifact refinement. The reserve price is 500 pieces of spiritual stones. A Chinese teenager took a jade to the side of shopkeeper Tian and opened it. The first thing in the auction was a small piece of great treasure, a small silver essence metal, sparkling in the jade. Exudes a dreary cold dignified breath. Is the silver enamel? Wei Suo's attention was completely attracted to the past. Jubilee is an exceptionally tough essence metal. In the general essence metal, as long as it is blended, the toughness of the whole essence metal will increase. This essence metal is also a general cultivator who wants to set up shapeshift great art when refining the flying sword. Because as long as a little silver scorpion is added to the flying sword made with ordinary essence metal, the quality of the flying sword will be improved, and the toughness will be many times. Flying sword is now continent for heavenly profound cultivator, a simpler shapeshift great art great treasure. Wei Suo have seen some flying sword of the cultivator of the shot, the power is really amazing, although the most common flying sword are heavenly circuit, realm 2nd, layer in order to display, because otherwise controls up flying sword up, the heavenly circuit realm 2nd layer below cultivator true UN power can only control flying sword around within a short distance of the body, not too great treasure effect. With Wei Suo's current cultivation base, there is no shapeshift great art controls flying sword at all, but think about the power of the flying sword, and look at the silver enamel that can improve the quality of the ordinary flying sword. Wei Suo is still very eyes. At present, there are quite a few cultivators on the scene of heavenly circuit realm. It is impossible to shoot. 500 pieces of spiritual stones, I want it. Sure enough, shopkeeper Tian's simple introduction and quotation just fell. There is a middle-aged thin cultivator wearing a red shapeshift great art suit, which looks a little cloudy, and immediately raises his hand. Cold surging sound said. Suddenly, many people's eyes gathered on the red-skinned cultivator. 600 off-the-shelf spiritual stones. Suddenly, almost in front of Wei Suo's VIP box, a slightly hoarse surging sound faintly quoted a price. 650 off-the-shelf spiritual stones. The red-faced cultivator with a sullen face turned his head, and his eyes looked extremely sharp at the VIP box. But the slight husky surging sound in the VIP box above seems to be unmoved, still plain. 700 pieces of spiritual stones. 800 pieces of spiritual stones. The red dress and thin cultivator face reveals a sneer, and there is a hint of killing intent in the eyes. 1000, the person in the VIP box is still plain. 1000 pieces. The entire great treasure is in vain. Although this kind of silver scorpion is not common, for the people who are in urgent need, 1000 products of spiritual stones are not a big deal, but one bid raises 200 pieces of spiritual stones, the plain surging sound of the VIP, but it shows that regardless of the number of spiritual stones added to the microscope, it is necessary to get the silver scorpion. In the red dress, the cultivator is stunned, but the fierce light in the eyes is a lot of concealment. There is no further bidding. After all, he is also very clear that he can report 1,000 pieces of spiritual stones without hesitation. It may not be able to get it. Because there was no other person to increase the price, Wei Suo took his own spiritual stones bag, and some of his eyes were on the side of shopkeeper Tian, and the young man in the silver jacket was taken off the stage. This silver carp is sent directly. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziwei. Chapter 35. Chapter 35. Don't worry. Wei Suo is completely heartwarming. After all, even if refining talisman success rate is 10%, it is a great treasure. It is now divided into 2 grades of spiritual stones. But more than 200 of the original spiritual stones can't be used up, at least more than 100 for the cost of funding and the acquisition of the fire. Now the price of this gold wire talisman brush is only 300 pieces of spiritual stones. However, according to the previous experience, the price of intercourse may be at least 600 pieces of spiritual stones. This is enough to borrow at least 500 pieces of spiritual stones. Hundreds of spiritual stones, I only have 100 pieces of spiritual stones on my body. How many hundred pieces of spiritual stones do you have on your body? Wei Suo looked at Nangang Yuking and said that his hand was sweating. Really, Nangang Yuking replied with some funny words, Great Treasure has 700 pieces of spiritual stones. 700 pieces of spiritual stones are really a little rich woman. Wei Suo was a little bit excited, but he still didn't feel relieved. Then he asked, what if I can't afford it for a while? You should not have any conditions attached. Nangang Yuking glanced at Wei Suo. You are really annoying. You really have to borrow, don't borrow it. When I didn't say it, I don't dare to take a lot of fireball talisman to sell it anyway. If you sell it, if you can't afford it, you can't take fireball talisman. Anyway, this shapeshift great art is also used. Debit the fool doesn't borrow. At this time, some people in the great treasure have already screamed for 350 pieces of spiritual stones. Wei Suo immediately yelled at the great treasure and shouted a surging sound, 400. 450, under the great treasure, the horse uploaded a surging sound that competed with Wei Suo. 500, Wei Suo has never bought such a expensive thing in this life, and when he shouted, he was a bit gnashing. 550, underneath a cultivator wearing a leather robe hesitated and added 50 spiritual stones. Not a talisman brush, what's so good? Wei Suo called a few surging sound in his heart, but still called, 600. Wei Suo, this 600 of the price of an export, the bottom of that several originally competed in the cultivator finally shook his head, gave up shouting price. After all, they do not know Wei Suo identity. Think above VIP box. Wei Suo is also what great treasure there are figures, and 600 low-grade crystal stone price even for the general system talisman master is not low. After all, now there is no one system talisman master. Wei Suo refining fireball talisman is so lucrative. Call Wei Suo great treasure is relieved. Fortunately the talisman master is quite rare in Spirit Peak City, otherwise the price increase will definitely be more. 700 off-the-shelf spiritual stones. Seeing that no one has bid again, the Chinese teenagers holding the trays are ready to send the gold wire talisman brush to the Wei Suo's VIP box, but at this time, a somewhat lazy surging sound is from it was passed out in a VIP box on the left. This mentally handicapped child, Wei Suo almost stunned in front of him. Surging sound bidding, it is the Li Honglan that looks very handsome and handsome. 800 pieces of spiritual stones, they have already shouted to 700 miles, and Wei Suo didn't want to give up, and he added a tooth and added 100. 900 pieces of spiritual stones, Li Honglan was very indifferent and added a price. Wei Suo is completely speechless, and he is almost certain that Li Honglin may not be particularly in need of this talisman brush. Just because this guy deliberately changed the composition of the great treasure box, it was made to deliberately want him. Wei Suo now hates spiritual stones who don't have great treasure, otherwise Wei Suo will use the spiritual stones to kill this guy. The key is that the 900 pieces of spiritual stones are already the limit of Wei Suo's. Even if he adds to 1000 spiritual stones, Li Honglin gives up the price, and the price is not what Wei Suo can afford now. This guy, I am going to marry him. Nangong Yuking is also a little hot, all at once. Oh, you are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 36. Chapter 36 is like a flower, seeking a red ticket. 1,800 down spiral stones. 2,000 downs of spiritual stones. The competition for the treasure receiving pocket, which is sparkling with yellow water, is fierce. A cultivator in a green gown, slightly obese, and a cultivator in a VIP box opposite Li Honglin also bid frequently. The price of the treasure receiving pocket, which is based on 900 of the following spiritual stones, has climbed all the way to 2,000 downscale spiritual stones. This guy can still pay the price. It looks like this guy's body is really good, but the two guys don't seem to be the ones who lack spiritual stones. Wei Suo saw Li Honglin's forehead seem to sweat, and secretly squeezed his eyes toward Nangong Yuking. Who is your Nangong Yuking sister? Nangong Yuking was so angry and funny, said next to Wei Suo's ear, are you just shouting and shouting? Nangong Yuking's look at Wei Suo's ear fell into Li Honglin's eyes, and Li Honglin suddenly bit his teeth. 2,300 pieces of spiritual stones. This is the Les Palace Lord of the Golden Eagle Palace. No wonder the rich treasure is thick. Look at people, buy a treasure receiving pocket with so many spiritual stones. You don't have to look at your eyes. It's so grand, you can't even get 1,000 of the following spiritual stones. The price of Li Honglin shouted out, and the entire auction venue suddenly became awkward. One of the fairly female cultivators was very depressed and complained that she should look like a male cultivator. Li Honglin shouted out the price, and the other two opponents did not increase the price and quit the competition. Shopkeeper Tian of Golden Jade Pavilion waved his hand and held the tray of the treasure receiving pocket. The young man quickly passed through the great treasure in the eyes of many people and entered the VIP box where Li Honglin was located. Li Shao Palace Lord, this is the treasure receiving pocket you took. The costumes of the Golden Jade Pavilion were very polite and handed the tray to Li Honglin. The treasure receiving pocket is very beautiful in the near future, with a golden ribbon on the mouth of the bag, and the entire treasure receiving pocket is decorated with a strange great treasure flower pattern with great treasure beads in addition to some looming rune. This according to your rules, if spiritual stones is not enough, can you replace it with something of equal value? Li Honglin looked at the Chinese costume boy and said. The Chinese costume boy gave a slight glimpse, and immediately responded professionally, this, if it is something that determines value, it should be no problem. This is 200 grade spiritual stones, you can check it out. Li Honglin twitched in the corner of his eye and gave a young woman with a skin suit intercourse with spiritual stones. Then he took out a pigeon-like great treasure, and it smelled of a thick, cold white but white egg. This is level 4 upper grade. The eggs of the frosted cornice, which can be tamed after hatching, should be worth at least 300 pieces of spiritual stones. If this is the egg of the frosty cornice, there should be no problem. Huafu teenagers counted spiritual stones. After receiving the eggs, they still said very politely. After saying this sentence, the Chinese teenagers will be turned around. By the way, when the teenager turned around, an extremely rectangtable lust on Li Honglin's face flashed. He shouted to live in the youth, I just today spiritual stones exactly did not bring enough, so just take out this frost fly. Was his who eggs, you can. Shopkeeper Tian said a surging sound, this egg is not for sale at the latest, in a few days, I will bring spiritual stones back to redeem. The Chinese costume boy nodded. If it is someone else, our Golden Jade Pavilion has no such rules, but Li Shao Palace Lord is a regular customer and has a reputation. I will sue for shopkeeper Tian. It should be no problem. Thank you so much. Li Honglin's face finally showed a smile and resumed the usual look. It was very proud to point the gold wire talisman brush and treasure receiving pocket on the tray. You help me send these two things. The VIP box over there, intercourse to Nangang looking, said that these two things were given to her. After waiting for the Chinese costume boy to understand, he nodded and went out. Li Honglin couldn't help himself. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 37. Chapter 37 Conditions to accept, seeking a red ticket. The payment of the Golden Jade Pavilion was very fast. Because Wei Suo and Nangang Yuking were present, the cold jade was sold. After deducting 10% of the cost, spiritual stones was sent to the VIP boxes of Wei Suo and Nangang Yuking. Because the amount is greater than great treasure, the integer of 800 is converted into 80 middle-grade spiritual stones. 80 light yellowish spiritual stones with a seductive luster are neatly spread out in a rosewood tray with 10 pieces of the original spiritual stones. This guy is stingy. After a spiritual stones came from the Golden Jade Pavilion, Wei Suo didn't react. When he went out, he couldn't help but grin. Because almost all of the great treasure customers have a good price, they will give a tip. For the guests who met the great treasure, the 10 pieces of the spiritual stones may have all been rewarded, but Wei Suo didn't even give a tip for the spiritual stones. But if the guy at Golden Jade Pavilion knows that Wei Suo was only a few short-selling spiritual stones in the recent past, and he was only willing to use a poor eye of spiritual stones cultivation every day, he might understand why Wei Suo is so embarrassed. These spiritual stones, you will take them for Yes Yao Zheng first, and then meet them and give them after. Wei Suo took 20 middle-grade spiritual stones and 2 off-the-shelf spiritual stones. He gave the remaining spiritual stones intercourse to Nangang Yuking. This guy is sometimes awkward, but people are good. Nangang Yuking did not deny it. After collecting the rest of the spiritual stones, he said to Wei Suo, if you want to go, let's go. Go now. Wei Suo looked at Nangang Yuking a little incomprehensible. The next thing is not to look at it. I don't want to talk to him more. Nangang Yuking snorted. When the auction is over, he will come over and look for us again. Fair enough, Wei Suo thought. Anyway, although he had a few bursts of windfall, but and this auction people than himself or poor to death, if this treasure receiving pocket is very rare, even if there is spiritual stones may not be able to exchange, and cannot throw down the auction, otherwise the words Wei Suo cannot help this treasure receiving pocket are directly replaced spiritual stones. Now Wei Suo golden wire talisman brush and another batch of spiritual stones hand, by this auction will stimulate. Wei Suo now is full of back desperately refining talisman, desperately earn spiritual stones with burning hope. The 4 symbols of the communication symbol, the effective distance is 300 miles, and the reserve price is 300 spiritual stones. Nangang Yuking was already ready to leave quietly with Wei Suo, but when she heard the next auction, she suddenly stopped and went to the grandstand of the VIP box. Wei Suo walked over and saw Li Honglin smiling at Nangang Yuking in the VIP box on the other side. It seemed that he had won a victory and was very proud. Why, do you want this thing? Wei Suo took a look at the 4 messages and thought it was a bit strange. Now heavenly profound continent is used to deliver messages. The great treasure is divided into 2 types, one is the domestic spirit beast, such as the lightning hummingbird and the stone beetle, the spirit crane, the other is the shapeshift great art, great treasure made by the cultivator. Good shapeshift great art great treasure, which is specially used to deliver messages, can be placed directly inside the paper, jade talisman, etc., directly to the side of the other party you want to pass, or you can take 1,000 sound transmission. The most advanced can even talk to each other. And now these 4 pieces of jade talisman appearance, although more good looking, are purplish red, are carved into 4 small fish appearance, but the 4-piece jade talisman roll is quite limited, seems to be only a peculiar crystal stone carved, as long as one of them talisman true UN in one of the communications jade, the remaining 3 jade talisman also emit light. This kind of communication jade talisman can only tell friends at a fixed place to meet, but there is no shapeshift great art to send more messages, although Wei Suo knows that shapeshift great art great treasure can deliver more information on great treasure sect among them are very popular, and the price is not the same as the 4 pieces of communication. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 38. Chapter 38, Illusory Light Talisman. In the middle of the night, a luminescent pearl hangs over the stone table in the Wei Suo hut with a small group of eye silk spiders, and shines the stone house without great treasure. The glittering gold silk talisman brush slides smoothly on the talisman paper like a fish. Suddenly, a sketch is drawn up. The whole reddish talisman paper flashes red, all the rune above. It seemed to flow all of a sudden, and a level 1 fireball talisman was successfully refining. This gold wire talisman brush is really a good thing. Wei Suo pinched the newly refining fireball talisman with the previously refurbished fireball talisman and found that the rune on the newly refurbished fireball talisman with the gold wire talisman brush is softer and smoother, even on the fireball talisman. The smoldering atmosphere must be slightly thicker. The quality of the fireball talisman is high, and the power of the cast will increase accordingly. This time next to a stone table has put 7 pieces of gold silk talisman brush refining fireball talisman, plus Wei Suo hand this one, Wei Suo this has been continuously refining 10 fireball talisman, which only refining bad 2, the success rate has exceeded 80%, and this time even if the refining is bad, but secret place a slight error, there is no direct burning lust condition. Inside the stone house, a new iron shelf was placed against the wall, and there were a lot of sealed bottles and jars filled with useful fire and blood. Is very satisfied with a look at the hand of the golden silk talisman brush and the new fireball talisman, Wei Suo from the bosom took out the embroidered great treasure flower pattern, looks very exquisite yellow treasure receiving ng pocket, with his purple violet true UN absorbed in, treasure receiving pocket mouth suddenly opened, sprayed a group of yellow light, containing spiritual stones and fireball talisman and so on, all singular floating in that group of yellow light. Wei Suo reached out and grabbed a middle-grade spiritual stones from the yellow light in front of him. Then he pulled the golden tape of the treasure-receiving pocket bag slightly, and the spiritual stones and other things that appeared in the yellow light were recovered with the yellow light. Treasure-receiving pocket. Yet, with this middle-grade spiritual stones, Wei Suo was prepared to start cultivation right away. But at this time, Wei Suo suddenly heard that green-robed old man on the side saw something good, just a surging sound. Isn't something good to discover, Wei Suo, who was already a little tired, came to the fore. Inspired by the last sapphire spell, Wei Suo bought a bunch of jaw slips when he went out to catch fire in the past few days. These no jade slips of restrictions are recorded by Heavenly Profound Continent. For example, the introduction of monster beast and spiritual herb, etc., the name of the place, etc., is an encyclopedia of a department, not worth much spiritual stones. Wei Suo thinks that these things may be useful to green-robed old man and himself. After all, green-robed old man knows things that were 1,000 years ago. Many place names and things are already wrong. Don't be there. According to his experience, there should be a place that can be used to deal with the low-grade monster beast, but now it is all high-level monster beast, and when I want to cry, I can't find a place to cry. And the most important green-robed old man knows so many fufang and pill recipe. Last time, although he told him about the common linko and monster core that he knew it was limited, or these the records are relatively complete, and there are various artifact refinement raw materials such as herbs and ores. and green-robed old man broke at 20,000 years of years, get these are also like loch, see with relish, sometimes a look is a whole night, these days down green-robed old man is also very good, such as a couple of years ago did not have some popular sayings, you great treasure head ghost depressed such as also learned a lot, and Wei Suo talk when the unconscious jumped out. Well, you are a great treasure head ghost Sure enough, this time, Wei Suo asked green-robed old man to say this directly, and then gave a look at Wei Suo. I have a lot of good things, as long as you can break through to Divine Sea Realm 4th layer cultivation base, naturally there are many good things. I am not a desperate cultivation that has been around for a day, opening up a Divine Sea. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 39. Chapter 39 Efforts on the 4th layer, Seeking Red Tickets. Transparent, infinitely crystallized powder is mixed in the black oil like cuttlefish fat, but it turns into a strange dark blue. When it boils in the steel stove, it rises round and round. Bright blue ripples, a kind of clear scent like orange peel. After the infinite crystal powder was completely melted in the cuttlefish, Wei Suo carefully poured the thick dark blue liquid into an unusually clean jade bottle. Unequal cooling liquid, he quickly put the gold wire talisman brush into the jade bottle, after sucking the liquid, did not hesitate, lifted the gold wire talisman brush, and fell on a ready golden talisman paper. Talisman brush is like a river flowing in the golden talisman paper. When sketched in some fine rune secret places, Wei Suo's dexterity makes the green-robed old man look a bit fascinating. Illusory light talisman. The first layer of rune is very complex, if it is refining fireball talisman, to weigh the current speed, not out of any fault Suo condition, as long as half a cup of tea can outline the time, now a full outline of a tea time, a trace of silk rune, just connected to a circle like a flower in full bloom of the chrysanthemum-like pattern, the entire pattern on each silk road began to have a glittering and translucent flow of the brilliance. Wei Suo's appeared a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. For him, it is not the success rate or speed that limits him to the fireball talisman. It is the divine consciousness that is extremely undermined, and the sharp loss. Divine consciousness can't stand it, there will be deviations in judgment, and refining talisman will be 100% scrapped. With a light pen, the tip of the pen instantly turned out a few tiny tortuous curves and suddenly left talisman paper. Sudden magnificent light flashes on all rune on the entire talisman paper, giving a sudden bloom-like feeling of flowers. It is finally. Wei Suo snorted, and the gnashing teeth called a surging sound. Illusory light talisman's refining difficulty was completely out of Wei Suo's expectations. Wei Suo was fully refining for 2 days, and now it is finally successful to complete the first layer of rune for the first time. This guy actually can complete the first layer in 2 days, green-robed old man this time, but have to admit Wei Suo is very gifted in refining talisman. Before he met the first trial of this illusory light talisman at least 7 or 8 days to complete the first floor, and he knew very well that the second layer is to be much simpler, generally can be finished as the first layer, the next layer as long as not to play an aberration, the probability of success is very high. However, he still verbally reminded me of a surging sound. There are only 2 stick of incense time. Do you want to celebrate 2 surging sounds? Wei Suo didn't want to be happy as soon as he heard it. After seeing his eyeball turn, he immediately wiped off the sweat on his forehead, sorted out his clothes a little, and then a true UN directed into the semi-finished illusory light talisman. Golden-colored illusory light talisman, covered with dark blue rune, suddenly shot a crystal light curtain. Come on, looking at the orientation of the crystal light curtain, Wei Suo stood in front of the crystal light curtain, and when he was illuminated by the crystal light curtain on the illusory light talisman controlled by his true UN, he called surging sound, a true Yuan hit a secret place rune on the semi-finished illusory light talisman. The crystal light curtain seemed to be fixed, suddenly stopped, and then quickly disappeared into the symbol. This step is a photo, and what kind of image will appear when the illusory light talisman is used, it must be done at this time. The reason why Wei Suo condenses her own eyes is to think that if the enemy is going to fight the monster beast, I can get it out and make a few of them, so that the opponent and the monster beast can figure it out. I don't know which one is really yourself. Because green-robed old man later said that the image produced by the illusory light talisman is extremely realistic, only when it is hit by something, it will be distorted when it passes through, and it can be seen. Be sure to refine into a/p. After the completion of the photo, Wei Suo. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 40. Chapter 40 Unicorn Thunder, Seeking Red Tickets. The milky white flash of intuition, the cultivator of 3-1 color dark gold shapeshift great art clothes, emerged from the shapeshift great art line of Green Hill. The 3 cultivator cultivation bases that look like they are all around 30 years old are good. The 2 tall cultivators on the left are the cultivation base of Divine Sea Realm 4th layer, while the one on the far right wears a pair of flashes. The cultivator of the Black Brilliance glove is the cultivation base of the Divine Sea Realm 5th layer. The dark gold shapeshift great art garments on the 3 cultivators are made of a soft essence metal, which looks good in defense, and there are 2 ancient great treasure words golden dragonfly near the chest. According to shapeshift great art, these 3 people are all cultivators of the Golden Eagle Palace. It's another low-grade rogue cultivator that doesn't know how to be thick and finds itself dead. As soon as the shapeshift great art was released, the cultivator with the black glove on the far right was just swept away, and a cold sneer had a surging sound. In front of the 3 people, in the secret place, there is a low-grade cultivator in the ordinary Tsingyi, which is heading for a secret place valley in the rolling hills. The low-grade rogue cultivator, which was found in the eyes of 3 Golden Eagle Palace cultivators, is the Wei Suo from culture. In the eyes of these 3 people, Wei Suo is sure to die. That is because Qingmingshan has a very large number of 3rd-level monster beasts. According to the usual experience of cultivator, the general 2-level Divine Sea stage cultivator great treasure can be independent. For the 2-level mid-level monster beast, Divine Sea Realm 3rd layer's cultivator great treasure can independently deal with 2 3-level mid-level monster beasts. The trio also saw that the Wei Suo's cultivation base should have not yet reached the Divine Sea Realm 4th layer. The cultivator of the Divine Sea Realm 4th layer is usually in a hordes of groups to dare to hunt the monster beast, and now Wei Suo is heading in the Qingming Mountain where the 6-7 level 3-level monster beast may be encountered at any time. The direction is also the direction of the Wan Snake Valley. There is a lot of weird rocks in the Wanchuo Valley. There are not many grotesque rocks in the valley, and because of the warm climate in the valley, the variety of plants is scary. The light looks more like the Liuxia Lane in Spirit Peak City. Chaos. There are not only a level 2 monster beast in the valley, but also a gathering place for a 3-level mid-level monster beast called the Flannel, and the cultivator of the Divine Sea Realm 5th layer does not necessarily have a way to go. But now Wei Suo doesn't seem to worry much. At a distance of several tens of feet from the mouth of the valley, Wei Suo directly injects True Yuan into the Ling Tian Yupei, who can use it 3 times, so that the secret place can be excited at any time. Then I saw Wei Suo and inspired a dark yellow talisman. As soon as the dark yellow talisman was motivated, he immediately formed a golden brilliance like the Admiralty outside his body, and the inside wall also revealed a strip of rune. After that, Wei Suo was directly wearing this golden great treasure bell-like mask, and the light was going deep into the Wan Snake Valley. The great treasure went deep into the Wan Snake Valley for more than 200 feet. Suddenly, 2 3-foot-long black lines flew from a great treasure tree on the left side of Wei Suo without warning. A surging sound of pa hit the golden visor outside Wei Suo. Wei Suo stopped immediately and saw that the two smashed into the golden mask outside Wei Suo were two 3-foot-long strange snakes, naked body and the bark of the ordinary great treasure tree. Almost the same color. Just below the neck, there are two short legs and a fleshy wing with a bird's claw. A triangular head looks a bit of a great treasure, and the two red eyes look very embarrassing. This kind of weird snake is the famous 3-level mid-level monster beast in the Wan Snake Valley. A Wei Suo outside the body of the golden light cover, the two winged scales of the flesh were evidently irritable, and the sharp howl surging sound of silk were sent out, and the speed of the two winged scales was extremely alarming, and it was possible to fly around in the air, turning and biting the golden light. It looked as if two black light were constantly stabbed outside the golden light. Just a moment's time, 3 identical flannel snakes flew in, hitting a golden mask, and surging sound looked very scary.